I am Wei Xiang and I will be presenting on the open show and save functions. The open function opens the CMS database files and load records into the database array. It skips initial metadata lines to reach the data. Using string tokenization, it parses each line into fields and validates the field count before storing any record. This ensures only properly formatted records are loaded. The showAll function displays a formatted table of all student records. It first checks if record count is 0 and reports if the database is empty. Otherwise, it prints the table header and iterates through the database array. Each record is shown with printf with specifiers for clear column alignment. The save function opens the file in write mode to persist all data. It writes metadata and table headers to define the file structure. It then loops through all records, writing each student's formatted data. For students with mark history, it traverses the linked list and saves each historical mark entry, preserving current records and complete mark history.
Hi, I'm Narendra and I'll be going through my insert operation code. So my insert operation code starts off with initializing local variables for the new student details entered by the user. Then each student details will have their own validation processes. For instance, in name, we will check for things like empty input and the name length. If it's more than 40, it will return an error message, etc. So once they will go through all this validation process, if they are accepted, it will then be stored in the in-memory database here, and a successful print message will be printed out. This is my query operation code. It mainly revolves around two helper functions, input ID and query find record by ID. Input ID ensures that the ID entered by the user is valid, and find record by ID checks if the ID entered by the user is matching any existing ID in the database. If it does, it then prints out all the necessary record data of that student, and if it doesn't, it just prints out a message to inform that such a ID does not exist.
I'm Zhen Jie, and I'll be presenting the update and delete operation. For update, we'll first call the input ID to prompt the user for an ID and check if the ID is in the record by using find record by ID. If the ID is found, display the current record for easy reference. After that, prompt the user to update the name, program, and the mark. The user can choose to keep the current records by pressing enter. The mark will go through a validation which only allows user to input numbers between 0.0 to 100.0. When the mark is successfully updated, it will record the previous mark with timestamp for mark history tracking. Lastly, it will print the successful message upon completion. For the delete operation, similar to update, call the input ID and find record by ID. If the ID is valid, prompt the user for deletion confirmation by typing capital Y. Upon deletion, the function shifts all records after the deleted position one position to the left. This effectively overrides the deleted record and eliminates the gap. Finally, record count is decremented by 1 to reflect the new array size.
So my name is Ikwan and I'll be explaining the sort and summary. So for sort, it's just by sort by student records, by their ID or their marks, ascending and descending. So we will have 4 comparators and they will all compare with each other. For the ID, they'll minus off each other. And then same with the marks. However, the mark from float will have to be converted to integer, and then it will return a 1 or 0. The reason why you do that is because we will use a qsort function, and then it will take 0, 1, or -1, and if it's -1, the first item will come before the second. If it's 0, the items will be equal and nothing will happen, and if it's 1, the second item will come before the first. And then as you can see, this is the results. As for summary, it will just display the total number of students, the average marks, and the highest and lowest marks, as well as those that attain them. So we have 2 loops. The first loop will find the highest and lowest marks and then calculate the average as well, while the second loop will then attribute the names of those with those lowest and highest marks.
Hi, I'm Jingwen, and for the mark history feature, each student record can contain a linked list of mark history nodes, and these mark history nodes are created when the mark for the student record is updated. The mark history item is created and added to the linked list. The mark history item contains the time when the mark was updated and the mark that was replaced. And when the show mark history option is selected, it will prompt the user for the ID number, and it will check that student record of that ID number if it contains any mark history items, and it will display all the mark history items if there are any, as you can see. And if there are none, it will give a error message that says no mark history records are found.
How the open, show all, and save function works. So let's get our program started first. Right, so over here you need to open the file before you can do anything else. So you can see this file over here that is being referenced is successfully opened. So next go to the show all, which is number 1. Then you can see all the data here is like properly shown in the command line from reference here. Okay, then afterwards let's do a save function, see if it works. So basically I'll just update something first. I'll just use an existing data. Okay, let's say I want to change my mark. So I want to change my mark to 67. Then afterwards, time to save. Save is option number 9. Then you can see a new mark history has been added, and like the over here, my mark has been successfully updated as well. Alright.
Okay, I will now be doing the code demonstration for my insert operation. So if user wants to insert a new record, they will have to input 3 in the menu option. Then they will be prompted to enter an ID number. So in this case, let's enter an ID that is unique and 7 digits long, and it does not exist yet. So a unique ID. Then we input a valid name, valid program name, and a valid mark. So in this case 50 for example. So it will then successfully insert once all the input is all valid. Then we can verify this by using show all. It will then show that it has been added as a new record in the database.
Let's proceed with the update and delete demo. So we'll set number 5 for update, and then we enter student ID, enter a new name, enter new program. We'll press enter to locate the current program, enter new mark, and then we'll select show all, and then we can see that the name and then the mark is also updated. For the delete, select number 6, enter an ID number, we'll select the first one, confirmation, type in a capital Y, successfully deleted. Let's check with show all. You can see that the first ID was being deleted.
So now I will show you the summary and sorting. So first, a summary for students with the average mark, highest mark, and lowest mark. As you can see, the highest and lowest mark. And then we'll do a quick show all tallies. Second, show all. So first, show all by ID ascending, as you can see, lowest to highest. Now ID descending, highest to lowest. Now it's mark ascending, lowest to highest. And now mark descending, highest to lowest. So now what if someone were to update the database? So let's just put some quick random stuff. Auto program, just put CMS, mask 67.0, the same as the lowest for someone else. So now if we were to show all, as you can see, the ID, show all by ascending, it works. Then we just skip to marks, it works. And lastly, summary, that lowest mark and highest mark.
And I'll showcase our group's unique feature, which is the mark history feature. So for example, I will select this mark history option, and I will select my own ID number. And as you can see, there are no mark history records yet. So let's go ahead and update our mark history. And I'll change it to 50. And let's view my mark history again. And as you can see, a record has been made with the current time as well as my previous mark. And to demonstrate further, it will look something like this with more updates to the students' marks, which serves as a trend of where their marks are going. And that will be all. Thank you. And I will share a run through of our whole program, as well as the validations and test cases. As you can see, our program runs on the menu system, where it will only accept numerical inputs. For example, in this case, 1 and 2. If I enter a number that is outside of the number of options given, for example, 3 here, it will tell me that it is an invalid option. So now I'll go ahead and open the database using 1. And as you can see, there are now 10 options, which are our main options for all our features. And if I enter a option that's outside of that number, it will tell me that it is an invalid option as well. So now I'll go ahead and demonstrate the validation for the insert function. It will ask me to enter an ID number. So in this case, I'll try and enter a duplicate ID number. And it will give me an error message that tells me that the record with this ID number is already existing in our database, and it will repeat the prompt for the ID number. If I go ahead and enter nothing into the input, it will give me an error message that tells me the ID cannot be empty. And if I type a wrong format for the ID number, let's say if I type strings or characters, non-numerical numbers into the input, for example, it will tell me that the ID must only contain numbers. And if I type a ID number that is too short, it will tell me that ID numbers must be exactly 7 digits, following the SIT ID number system. So these checks are performed for all the ID number inputs in our program. They all share the same function, and yeah, so they all go through the same kind of validation. So now I'll go ahead and exit this loop using Control D as an input, which will exit the operation. And I'll move on to the update function. So I will enter a valid ID number. And let's skip the name and program inputs, and we'll move on to the mark input. So the marks should only be ranging from 0 to 100. And let's try entering a mark that exceeds 100. It will give me an error message that tells me the mark must be between 0 and 100. And if you go below 0, the same error message appears as well. And this mark validation also applies to the insert operation, which also has the mark field. So, and that will be all for the data validation portion of our program. Thank you.